Let's talk about Arsenal. Where do we start? Where do we actually start with Arsenal? I don't enjoy this, right? You know, I am.
Wait. I'll let you go because obviously you're Mr. Anti-Arsenal on this podcast.
That's the thing.
I'll let me go first. I'll let you unleash on Arsenal. I get it, and we are on the same page in terms of Arsenal on the pitch, Arsenal off the pitch. Arsenal on the pitch are not a big team, but let's give credit first of all to Brentford, who did perform admirably. They come up, they played the same style of football that they played in the Championship. They were pressing, they didn't let Arsenal breathe. They scored the goals at the right time and they managed the game perfectly. Didn't really give Arsenal any clear chances. It was a Friday night under the lights at the Brentford Community Stadium. It was the first time they'd been in the top flight for like 70 odd years. A lot of pressure on that game, and they performed, they handled it well. We saw Thomas Frank in the post-match, like with the fan. That was lovely. It was a beautiful kind of moment for Brentford, who deserve all the flowers. And now I'll let you go on Arsenal.
Mate, 100%. I don't want to take anything away from Brentford at all. But there were points in that game where you thought the teams before the game might have swapped jerseys.
Yeah.
You know, who was the Premier League established Premier League team in that game? I don't enjoy this. I don't.
You're lying. You are lying.
I don't necessarily enjoy the fact that I have to speak weekly about Arsenal, and because Arsenal never do anything of note. Really, I just have to say it as it is. And that game was laughable. That game was laughable. As much as we have to praise Brentford for being, you know, they came up and did their thing. Arsenal did nothing in that game.
Do you give Arsenal an excuse because Aubameyang and Lacazette weren't playing?
No, come on, bro. Even the fact that they were missing, you could see from Arteta's like reactions. I know this might be rumours, but you know, even from the reason that they were, you know, absent from the team through illness, you could tell from his pre-match interviews that something's up there. It's not a good time to be an Arsenal fan, I know, and this is the beauty of football. They could go beat Chelsea on the weekend. You know, stranger things have happened, and part of me thinks that it could happen, really. And you know, let's start with giving some Arsenal players their flowers. I feel like the good things about Arsenal tonight was Kieran Tierney, and I feel like, you know, Smith Rowe had a good game as well. I feel like those two really, they were the only two people, in my opinion, that looked deserving to wear an Arsenal shirt. If I'm honest, I don't dislike Arsenal. I don't like Arsenal. I feel indifferent to Arsenal. I'll be honest, but it is getting to a point where I do understand your point in feeling sorry for the fans, because the fact that they have to pay like $1,000, like it's the first time. I know they're at Brentford, for example, but say they play against Chelsea and they're paying $1,000 for a season ticket to see a performance like that. I mean, you look at the team that was fielded. If I'm really honest, is that a team that's good enough to be? You know, Arsenal fans will have ambitions to finish in the top 4. You know, realistic Arsenal fans will probably expect a top 6, maybe top 8 finish with the absence of Europe. But is that team strong enough to finish in the top half of the Premier League? We did a poll on our Instagram today, and if it's still alive, I'll stick it in the video. But I think like 66% people expect Arsenal to finish in the bottom half.
Yeah,
I get to talk about Arsenal on here every week, and I genuinely am speaking as it is. I have no stoke in the fire when it comes to Arsenal. I enjoy seeing Arsenal fail and seeing, you know, people like Hugh Wizzy. Shout out to Hugh Wizzy. Shout out to AFTV. I enjoy seeing them angry. Like, it's good entertainment. But at the same time, are they good enough? Are they good enough? Like, Ben White was getting chucked under the bus, but he had Pablo Mari playing next to him. Did anyone see his game? Yeah. Callum Chambers at right back. Did anyone see that? Honestly, it was a laughable performance. Like, even Ian Wright coming out like club legend didn't even match Brentford. Like, Brentford were the established team there. They were the established team. Like, Arsenal were just laughable. And I know if you look at stats, if you're a stat guy, I think they had like 65% of possession. I think they had like 22 shots. But they were shooting from like 30, 40 yards.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly.
With Arsenal, yeah, it's and this is where you know your club's in a sorry state of affairs, because tribalism exists in football. Tribalism is what drives football, and especially fans being back. That's what we love about the game. And used to love hating Arsenal. I genuinely, that hate has subsided totally because they're not a threat. And it's the same reason, it's quite controversial, because I was having a conversation about Spurs and about Liverpool. And I was like, I hate Liverpool more than Spurs because over my lifetime of being a Chelsea fan, Liverpool have always been competing for the same trophies that we are. We generally have a great record against Spurs and they don't win any trophies.
Yeah.
And I used to hate Arsenal. I have the utmost sympathy for all of their fans and even some of the players, because I'm like, you're not good enough to be wearing the shirt. You've been put in this position because the board are treating the fans with absolute contempt. Being an owner of a football club doesn't mean that you make money of a football club. It means that you're the custodian of history. It means that you try and put out the best product possible for your stakeholders, who are the fans. And the Arsenal board haven't done that since 2004, mate. When there was an exodus of top class players like Fabregas, it probably started with Thierry Henry, Van Persie, and they just sold their best players without replacing that with adequate quality. And they were being told that it's because we moved to a new stadium, and by 2011 or whenever it is, we're going to be on the same level as Bayern Munich, competing for the best trophies in the world. They haven't done that, and as a result of that, I have the utmost sympathy for Arsenal fans, who the only solace that they can take from being an Arsenal fan is that they release the waviest kits and the waviest garments every season. Yeah. But if you are now in a fashion brand as opposed to a football team that everybody has to respect, and everybody has previously respected because of the legends that you mentioned, like Ian Wright and Thierry Henry and Patrick Vieira, these legends that built the club, Arsene Wenger, then like, within football discourse and conversations, if you're an Arsenal fan, I don't even enjoy ripping into you, because like, you know what the issues are, we know what the issues are, and it's quite just sad to see such an established football team fall like the way they're falling.
Very true, very true. And I mean, to talk about how far they've fallen, you know, they lost Lacazette and Aubameyang. You've only got to look at I know I've mentioned it, but you've only got to look at the team that was fielded. You know, and then look at the options on the bench. So they started with Folarin Balogun, young player. It's hard to really slate him too much. You know, it's hard. Like, he's playing up top in an isolated Arsenal side with very, very little service. But, you know, you look at let's just look at their starting lineup, for example. So I've got it here. You've got Bernd Leno in goal. He's been very uninspiring, as an Arsenal signing in general. But he's your starting goalkeeper for a team that expected to finish top half.
They got rid of Martinez, who is an infinitely better keeper. Exactly.
We were having conversations about how Martinez might be the third best keeper in the league the other day, right? You got Kieran Tierney, who I think is a great signing. Ben White, time will tell. Callum Chambers, time will tell. Really, I don't know if he's an Arsenal player, in my opinion. You know,
he's had his chances, mate.
Yeah, Pablo Mari. I think Callum Chambers had a great game against West Ham, ironically, last year. But other than that, I haven't seen him do much in an Arsenal shirt. Pablo Mari, time will tell. Emil Smith-Rowe, great young player. Nicolas Pepe, this is a £70 million player that we're still waiting for to show he's a £70 million player. How long has he been at Arsenal now? Nearly 2 years. Lokonga, young player, debut, hard.
On the back of the Pepe thing, I think we also have to put him in the category of time will tell, because the back end of last season he scored a lot of goals. Yeah. But I know what you mean, £70 million player, you expect a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. Like, look at the amount of pressure that Timo Werner and Kai Havertz have been under at Chelsea, for example. I isolate them, and Pepe shouldn't be excluded from that conversation. Albert Sambi Lokonga, of course, young player, didn't do much, but do you know what I mean? Time will tell. Granit Xhaka, I think today they've actually got a year extension. He's captain in your club, and this is a guy that stamped on the shirt a couple years ago.
Bro, and that right there on Granit Xhaka exemplifies where Arsenal are at. This is somebody maybe 2-3 weeks ago that was making the biggest noises about wanting to go to Roma, and now you give him a new contract and he captains your teams and something. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Gabriel Martinelli, a lot of Arsenal fans will tell you that he's one of the best young players in the world, but I don't know if he's done it enough in the Premier League really to suggest that.
Apart from the goal against Chelsea, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
haven't seen anything from
there's not
since.
much talking about it. We've already spoken about Balogun, but fine. That's their starting 11, right? Half of them you would expect on the subs bench of an Arsenal side, but then you look at their subs bench, it's like, what is going on here? Like Cole Hine, I don't know anything about him, to be honest. Hector Bellerin, guy that's been at Arsenal probably 5 years too long, in my opinion. Rob Holding, again, is he an Arsenal caliber player?
This is brutal, man.
Cedric Suarez, a guy that didn't exactly light the world up at Southampton, but Arsenal figured that they could go sign him. Right? You know, Nuno Tavares, young player. Bukayo Saka, absolute baller of a player. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, a guy that wasn't deemed good enough to be at Arsenal last season, so was loaned out to West Brom and got relegated. I rate him as a player, but he's clearly not valued at Arsenal at all. Mohamed El Neni, nothing needs to be said. And Reece Nelson, a young player that's in his early 20s now, and will probably be spoken about as a young player by Arsenal still. So
You are killing, bro.
Do you know what?
I get it.
Do you know what? Like,
You're
without me,
killing them.
but without me talking too much about Arsenal and talking too much about how I don't think they're, because they haven't been good for 18 years, that I'm meant to give them respect. Fine. Like, I respect the tapestry of football. 6 months ago, when the ESL came in, they were attacking teams like, Arsenal were attacking the tapestry of football. I care about the history of football. I care about growing up and seeing Thierry Henry ball out. I care about Henry being in the Hall of Fame. Like, Arsenal were very much a part of my childhood and caused me a lot of, sleepless nights when I was a kid. But ultimately, that was 18 years ago, and I haven't seen them do enough since, right? I was talking to V. Shout out V if you're listening. I'm sure he is. He's a top guy. I was talking to V on the weekend, I was watching a YouTube compilation of every final of the Champions League from 2003 to 2021, and the Barcelona-Arsenal final came up, and you've got players like Sol Campbell scoring a goal, and you just look at Arsenal and see how far they've fallen. And I know it's difficult. I know they've got an incredible stadium, but ultimately their squad isn't good enough. I don't feel like any of their players look like they played for the shirt, and I feel like the key difference between the sides, right? I know we've spoken a lot about Arsenal at this point, but key difference between the sides last week is that the players for Brentford, they buy into Thomas Frank. They lined up in a 3-5-2, classic two up top. You don't see that much in the Premier League, so shout out to that for one. But all the players looked invested in each other. They looked a team. But then you looked at Arsenal and it was just a disjointed mess.
Okay, so I've got a question for you. How much of that, obviously they're in disarray at board level. I say disarray, it's not even disarray. They just do not care. They've got American owners that are more interested in their American franchises. Fair enough. Yeah. But how much of the blame falls on Mikel Arteta? Because honestly, he was being painted as the chosen one, this god, this disciple of Pep Guardiola. I've not seen anything. He got credit. He had money in the bank for winning the FA Cup against the Chelsea team managed by Frank Lampard, who we've now gone on to see didn't do the best job when he got given all the weapons that he got given. And Aubameyang had an incredible semi-final and an incredible final, and he basically dragged them to that trophy. So he's got a lot of credit in the bank for winning that FA Cup. But to me, in terms of the style of play, in terms of what he's trying to implement at Arsenal, I can't see any of it. And I know that a lot of the blame falls on manager and this inadequacies at board level that are causing this at Arsenal primarily. But we've seen teams like Liverpool who went through disarray for a decade, brought in Jurgen Klopp, and it seemed like the FSG, there was no talks about FSG being these geniuses with this money ball technique or whatever until Jurgen Klopp came in and he changed the whole face of that club. At Arsenal, I do not think they've got the right man in charge to make a good fist of doing anything.
No, again, historically we're looking at one of the top 6 sides in England, and they've got an unproven manager that's been at Arsenal. I know he won the FA Cup a couple of years ago, but some Arsenal fans are done with him, but some Arsenal fans will tell you that we're just waiting for his philosophy, waiting for his things to come across. And it's just like, I know there's a problem at board level, but he's been afforded the opportunity to go and sign players like Ben White for 52 million. An unproven manager that isn't doing it. And I know we're early doors, but last year they were woeful. And if the biggest telling sign for me, and I know everyone thinks I'm an Arsenal hater in general, but I wasn't surprised that they lost to Brentford. None of us were surprised watching that game.
Yeah,
I didn't watch that game and think, if I see Brentford beat, Chelsea 2-0, that's a shock. If I see him beat one of the big sides, but I'm not surprised by Arsenal losing 2-0.
Yeah,
that's just where Arsenal are at right now.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, and I feel like that's enough about Arsenal because they're not going to be there or thereabouts because we all know the issues that they've got. A team that will be there or thereabouts, or maybe or that were last season, were your boys. They had a great showing on the weekend, one of the most exciting games of the weekend for sure. And do you reckon that Moisey and the boys can build upon their 6th place finish last year?